My name is Alice Jordan, and the day I died wasn't the day I stopped breathing. It was the day my husband, Damon Rist, stood under the bright lights of my business launch and said, "Sign it, Alice. Stop embarrassing yourself. You've already lost." He said it slowly, calmly, while my 5-year-old son clung to his neck and my best friend, Mariel Sable, watched with a smirk she didn't bother hiding. In front of investors, employees, and cameras, they stripped me of ownership. My name vanished from the company wall like I was being erased in real time. I stood there frozen, my hands shaking, watching everything I built crumble. The room felt too bright, too loud, too suffocating. My son looked at me with confused eyes, not understanding why Mommy was crying. Damon's grip on the papers was firm, his smile cold and calculated. Mariel stood beside him like she belonged there, like she had always been part of this plan. I didn't know then that she had been planning this for years. The investors whispered among themselves, their eyes judging me, pitying me, dismissing me. My assistant looked away, unable to meet my gaze. The security guard at the door shifted uncomfortably. Everything I had worked for, every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every dream, it all dissolved in that single moment. Some wounds kill you long before the world notices, and I was dying right there in front of everyone. Mariel wasn't just a best friend. She was my safe space, my sister, my confidant. I trusted her with every secret, every fear, every vulnerable piece of my soul. My childhood trauma from losing my parents. My panic attacks hit me in the middle of the night. My fear of abandonment made me cling too tight to people. My weaknesses, my insecurities, my deepest wounds. She knew about the nights I couldn't sleep, the days I doubted myself, the moments I felt like I wasn't enough as a mother, as a wife, as a businesswoman. I told her everything because I thought she cared, because I believed she loved me the way I loved her. We had been friends since we were 12 years old. She knew me better than anyone, but she later used each one as ammunition, each confession as a weapon to destroy me. As I signed the forged documents with trembling hands, she whispered behind me, her breath cold against my ear, "You should have never told me everything. Some truths are weapons." Her voice was soft, almost gentle, which made it even more cruel. I turned to look at her, searching desperately for the friend I knew, but she was gone. In her place stood a stranger wearing her face, a stranger who had been planning my destruction. A trusted friend with bad intentions is a walking disaster. In the custody hearing, they presented a psychological report claiming I was unstable, unfit, dangerous to my own child. Mariel had helped fabricate it, using every private conversation we'd ever had against me. The document listed panic attacks I'd confided in her about during our late-night phone calls, twisted my vulnerability into proof of mental instability and danger. It mentioned my childhood trauma, my therapy sessions, my medication for anxiety. Everything was documented, manipulated, weaponized. The judge read it carefully, his expression growing more concerned with each page, looked at me with pity mixed with suspicion, and awarded full custody to Damon. My son, Irene, cried for me as the bailiff carried him out of the courtroom. His little hands reached for me desperately until he disappeared behind the heavy courtroom door, his voice calling Mommy echoing in the hallway. I screamed his name, but no sound came out of my throat. My legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the cold tile floor, my body refusing to hold me up anymore. Security guards pulled me up roughly, told me to calm down, told me it was over, that I needed to accept the decision. But it wasn't over. It was just beginning. The quietest screams are the ones no one hears. I went home to an empty house that still smelled like him, his toys scattered across the living room floor, and I died a little more with each breath. 3 months later, Damon married Mariel in a lavish ceremony that was featured in the society pages. My childhood friend became my son's stepmother, stepping into the role I was ripped away from. She wore the ring Damon once promised to replace for me, the one I'd admired in a jewelry store window years ago. Now it sat proudly on her hand, gleaming under the chandelier lights at their wedding reception, a symbol of everything they'd stolen. I saw the photos online, each one a knife to my heart. Everyone smiling, everyone celebrating, everyone pretending this was beautiful. My son in a tiny suit, standing between them like they were his real family, like I never existed, like I was just a ghost they'd successfully exorcised. People congratulated them in the comments, called them beautiful, called them perfect, called them meant to be. No one asked where I was. No one remembered me. No one questioned how quickly he'd moved on. I stared at those photos for hours, trying to understand how everything I loved had been taken and repackaged as someone else's happiness, wrapped in white lace and lies. Betrayal wears silk when it wants to be respected, and theirs was draped in expensive fabric, designer flowers, and fake smiles that fooled everyone except me. I left the city where everyone knew my name and my shame. I moved to a small, forgotten town 3 states away where my story had no weight, where no one recognized my face. I took a backroom job in an auto shop because no one else would hire me after what they did to my reputation. My name was poison in every professional circle. Every application I filled out was rejected within days. Every interview ended in polite dismissal once they Googled my name and found the fabricated stories. So I disappeared into a place where no one knew Alice Jordan, where no one asked questions about my past, where I could fade into the walls and stop existing in any meaningful way. I worked long hours fixing engines, my hands covered in grease and oil, my mind deliberately numb. The owner, an older man who didn't care about backgrounds, paid me cash under the table. I lived in a tiny apartment above a laundromat where the constant noise of washing machines rumbled through the floors. The noise kept me awake at night, but I didn't mind because silence was worse. Silence meant thinking. Thinking meant pain. Sometimes disappearing is the only way to stay alive, so I vanished from the world completely. Loneliness wrapped around me like a second skin, so tight I could barely breathe under its weight. Sleep fled from me like I was cursed. Food tasted like cardboard, like ash, like nothing at all. My pillow absorbed more tears than words, soaked through night after night. I stopped looking in mirrors because I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me anymore. Dark circles under hollow eyes. A face that aged 10 years in one. Cheekbones are too sharp from not eating. Hair going gray at 35. Depression settled into my bones, made my limbs heavy like concrete, made breathing feel like work, made existing feel impossible. Some days I didn't get out of bed, just stared at the ceiling counting cracks. Some days I forgot to eat, my body was too numb to register hunger. Some days I sat on the floor and stared at the wall until the sun went down and rose again. I thought about Irene constantly, obsessively, and painfully. I wondered if he remembered me, if he still had my face in his memory. Wondered if they told him lies about why I left, painted me as the villain in his story. I wondered if he hated me now. It's easy to breathe. It's hard to want to. But somehow I kept going, not because I was strong or brave, because stopping felt like letting them win, and I couldn't give them that satisfaction. I never saw his school plays where he probably had leading roles. Never heard him say "Mom" again, never heard his voice change as he grew. Never got a birthday call, not once in 19 years. Every holiday was a wound that reopened annually, predictably, cruelly. Christmas came and I imagined him opening presents without me, sitting around a tree with them. His birthday arrived every year and I baked a cake alone in my tiny apartment, put candles on it, blew them out for a child who didn't know I still counted the years, and still celebrated him in silence. I wrote him letters I never sent, hundreds of them over the years. Kept them in a shoebox under my bed, tied with string. Told him about my days, my thoughts, my endless love for him. Told him I was sorry for not being stronger. Told him I was fighting to come back, even when I had no idea how. But I had no address to send them to, no way to reach him through the wall they'd built. They had built a fortress around my son, and I was locked outside in the cold. A mother's heart never stops counting the days, never stops measuring the distance. 19 years passed like a slow, endless winter where spring never came. And I lived through every frozen, painful moment, marking time by his age, his milestones I'd never witness. At 43 years old, worn down by nearly 2 decades of grief, I heard a soft knock on my apartment door one ordinary Tuesday evening. I opened the door to a tall young man with eyes that felt like mirrors reflecting my own soul back at me. "Are you Alice Jordan?" he asked, his voice uncertain and hopeful at the same time. I hesitated, my heart beginning to pound. I didn't know him, didn't recognize this grown man standing in my doorway. Then he held up a picture with trembling hands, me holding a 5-year-old boy with dark curls and a missing front tooth. My breath stopped completely. My heart cracked open like an egg, everything inside spilling out. "Mom, it's me, it's Irene." The world tilted sideways. My knees gave out beneath me. I grabbed the door frame, trying to stay upright, but my body refused to cooperate with my mind. He looked so different, so impossibly grown. So tall, so much older, a man where my baby used to be. But his eyes were exactly the same. The same eyes that reached for me in that courtroom 19 years ago. The same eyes I saw every night in my dreams, in my nightmares, in every waking moment. Some moments are too powerful for the heart to stand. And this was one of them, this impossible reunion. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but stare at the son I thought I'd lost forever standing in my doorway like a miracle. He caught me before I fell completely, his strong arms wrapping around me. I sobbed in his arms, deep, shaking, uncontrollable sobs that came from somewhere ancient inside me. He held on tighter, absorbing every tremor. "I've been looking for you for years," he whispered against my hair. His voice was deeper now, a man's voice, but still gentle and kind. I clung to him like he might disappear if I let go, like this might be a cruel dream. My hands gripped his shirt desperately, my tears soaked his shoulder, and I couldn't stop shaking, my whole body convulsing with emotion. "I'm sorry," I kept saying over and over. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there." But he just held me tighter and said, "You don't have to apologize, you didn't leave me. They took me from you." We stood in the doorway for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Him holding me up while I fell apart, me falling into pieces I didn't know still existed. Neighbors passed by, but we didn't care who saw. Reunion is a kind of resurrection, a coming back from the dead. And I was coming back to life in his arms after being a ghost for 19 years. After 19 years of silence and separation, I finally heard my son's voice again, felt his arms around me, knew he was real and here and mine again. Standing behind him on my doorstep was his girlfriend, Lanessa Carden, an attorney with fierce, intelligent eyes and a leather briefcase. "Mrs. Jordan, we found evidence of everything they did to you," she said directly, wasting no time. She listed them calmly, professionally, like she was reading a legal brief. Forged custody documents with falsified signatures. Hidden bank accounts in offshore locations. Illegal transfers of company funds. Identity theft spanning nearly 2 decades. Business fraud on multiple levels. Each word hit me like a physical punch to the stomach. Evidence. Proof. Truth. Finally, after all these years. She opened her briefcase right there in my doorway and showed me files, thick folders full of documents. Documents with Mariel's signature next to forged versions of mine. Bank statements showing stolen money, transfers I never authorized. Emails between Damon and Mariel planning the takeover, discussing strategies, celebrating victories. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages, seeing the conspiracy laid out in black and white. Years of lies, years of theft, all documented and provable. "We can take them down," Lanessa said, her voice steady and confident. "But only if you're ready to fight." I looked at Aren, at the man my son had become despite them. At the woman who helped him find me. Truth may crawl slowly, but it never dies. And ours was finally standing in the light, ready to be heard. I told Aren desperately, trying to protect him. "They raised you. Damon is your father. Mariel cared for you. Let it go. Let me carry my pain alone." He held my face gently in both hands and said, "They didn't raise me, Mom. They controlled me. They erased you from my life. I want my mother back." I broke all over again, my carefully constructed walls crumbling. "You don't understand," I whispered, trying to make him see reason. "This will destroy everything. Your life, your relationship with them, your peace, your stability." But he shook his head firmly. "I had no peace, Mom. I had lies and manipulation and a hole inside me I couldn't name. I found letters you wrote to me. They hid them in the attic in a locked box. I read every single one last year." Tears streamed down his face, this grown man crying like the little boy I remembered. "They told me you abandoned me, that you didn't want me, that you were sick and dangerous. But I found the truth in your words. And now I want justice for both of us. Sometimes love fights harder than anger ever could, with more determination and strength. And my son's love was a force I couldn't stop, couldn't contain, couldn't deny. He had spent 19 years searching for answers, and now he'd found them. And he wanted to fight. We met in secret at Lunnis's office downtown, careful not to be seen together. Collected documents systematically, organized everything chronologically. Organized evidence in labeled folders and digital files. Planned every step with military discipline and precision. Lunessa was methodical, treating the case like surgery, cutting away every lie with legal precision. We hired a private investigator named Cashin Rowe, recommended by Lunessa. He was quiet, efficient, and relentless in his pursuit of truth. He dug into Damon and Mariel's life, finding cracks in their perfect image, weaknesses in their stories. We worked late into the night at Lunessa's office, reviewing files until our eyes burned, highlighting inconsistencies, building a timeline that proved everything. Irene helped, his jaw tight with determination, his hands steady as he organized papers. He wanted them to pay for every year they stole from us, every lie they told, every manipulation. My suffering became a strategy, transformed from weakness into weapon. Every tear I cried, every sleepless night, every moment of pain, it all mattered now in a different way. It was fuel for the fight. It was proof of their crimes. It was power we could use. Revenge done calmly is twice as sharp, twice as effective. And we were sharpening our blade with patience, precision, and planning. We weren't acting out of rage. We were acting from clarity, and that made us dangerous. Cash and Row uncovered stolen funds after weeks of investigation, following money trails across state lines. Money siphoned from my accounts for years, transferred in small amounts to avoid detection. Nearly $1 million in total, stolen incrementally over time. My business profits, gone, redirected into their pockets. Transferred into offshore accounts under fake company names and shell corporations. Damon had been stealing from me since before the divorce was even finalized. Mariel had helped him hide it, setting up the accounts, creating the paper trail. They used my money to build their empire, to fund their lifestyle, to pay for their wedding, their honeymoon in Europe, to buy their house in the expensive neighborhood, to live the life that should have been mine and Iren's. Cashin showed me transaction records, dates that corresponded with specific events, amounts that matched business profits. Every theft documented in spreadsheets, every lie exposed in bank statements. They didn't just take your business, he said, his expression disgusted. They took your future, your son's college fund, your retirement, everything. I stared at the numbers on the computer screen, feeling rage burn through my chest like fire. Greed leaves a trail even the blind can follow, a path of breadcrumbs made of stolen money. And we were following it straight back to them, documenting every step. The private investigator discovered Mariel had been plotting for years, long before the business launch. She seduced Damon while I was pregnant with Irene, vulnerable and trusting. She planted doubts about me in his mind, subtle comments about my capability. She rehearsed her betrayal like an actress preparing for a role. Cashin found old emails between them buried in archived accounts, messages that proved this wasn't a spontaneous affair. It was a calculated plan. They talked about me like I was an obstacle, a problem to be solved and removed. Mariel wrote in one email, "She trusts me completely. She tells me everything. It'll be easy." Damon replied, "Just keep her close and dependent. When the time comes, we'll take everything." My hands shook violently as I read their words, seeing the conspiracy in their own handwriting. They had smiled in my face while sharpening knives behind my back. They had pretended to love me while planning my destruction. She was no accident, no mistake, no friend who lost her way. She wasn't a friend who made a terrible error in judgment. She was a predator who chose me as prey from the beginning. Some betrayals are crafted carefully over time, not spontaneous. And hers was a masterpiece of cruelty, planned and executed with precision. She had studied me, learned my weaknesses, and used them to destroy me. Lunessa assembled everything like a surgeon preparing for a critical operation, laying out each piece with care. She crafted a case so precise, so sharp, so airtight that a single mistake from Damon would collapse his entire world. She organized the evidence into clear categories: financial fraud, identity theft, custody manipulation, perjury, witness tampering. She prepared witness statements from people who remembered the truth. She contacted old employees from my business who remembered what really happened at the launch, who felt guilty for staying silent. She built a fortress of truth around us, walls made of documents and testimony. "When we walk into that courtroom," she said, her eyes fierce and determined, "they won't have anywhere to hide, nowhere to run, no lies left to tell." I watched her work with growing awe and gratitude. She was fierce, focused, unstoppable, relentless. She treated my pain like it mattered, like I mattered, like justice was worth fighting for. Quiet preparation makes the loudest victories in the end, and ours was going to echo through their lives forever. We were ready, armed with truth and evidence, and they had no idea what was coming toward them, no clue that their empire was about to crumble. They still thought they were safe, untouchable, protected by time and money, but time was up. Irene told me he felt empty his whole life, like something crucial was missing. that Mariel and Damon isolated him from everyone who knew me, that he found letters I wrote to him but they hid in the attic. He cried in my arms for the childhood he lost, for the mother stolen from him. I always felt like something was missing, he said, his voice breaking. Like there was a hole in my chest I couldn't fill no matter what I did. Now I know it was you. He told me about birthdays where he felt inexplicably sad for no reason he could name. Holidays that felt hollow despite the presents and parties. Moments when he caught Mariel and Damon whispering, and they'd stop abruptly when he entered the room. They controlled everything about my life, he said, anger mixing with pain. Who I talked to, where I went to school, what I believed about you. They monitored my phone, read my emails, isolated me from anyone who might tell me the truth. He found my letters when he was cleaning the attic last year, preparing to move out. Read them all in one night, sitting on the dusty floor. Realized everything they told him was a lie, every story a manipulation. You can steal years from people, but not the truth inside a child's heart. And my son's heart never forgot me, never stopped searching, never stopped feeling that something was wrong with his world. We filed the case officially, serving papers through the court system. Damon received the court papers at a charity gala he was hosting. Mariel's face cracked in real time, her composure shattering. The audience filmed it on their phones, capturing every moment. Cashin had arranged for the papers to be served publicly, deliberately, right in the middle of their charity event for children. The same venue where they'd taken my business years ago. Poetic justice. The server, a professional process server, walked up to Damon while he was giving a speech about integrity and family values, handed him the thick envelope, and walked away without a word. Damon's smile faded as he opened it with confused hands. Mariel grabbed the papers from his hands, read them, and went visibly pale. The room fell into uncomfortable silence. People whispered to each other, confused. Cameras clicked, phones recorded. Someone uploaded the video online within minutes, and it started spreading. Karma loves an audience, loves witnesses to justice, and ours was watching in real time, sharing and commenting. Their perfect image shattered in front of everyone they wanted to impress. The same people they'd fooled for years were now watching them exposed. The masks were coming off whether they wanted them to or not. Financial audits began immediately, freezing their access to funds. Their accounts froze overnight, credit cards declined. Their reputation collapsed like a house of cards in the wind. Mariel blamed Damon publicly, telling friends he manipulated her. Damon blamed Mariel, calling her the mastermind. The empire they built on my bones began crumbling, piece by piece. Banks started asking uncomfortable questions about offshore accounts. Business partners pulled out of deals, distancing themselves. Investors demanded explanations and threatened lawsuits. Their carefully constructed life unraveled thread by thread, day by day. I watched from a distance as they scrambled desperately. Damon tried to charm his way out using his usual smooth talk. Mariel tried to play victim, crying to reporters. But the evidence was too strong, too documented. The truth is too clear, too obvious. People who once celebrated them now avoided them like disease. Phone calls went unreturned, messages left unread. Invitations stopped coming to events they used to headline. Their social circle vanished overnight like smoke. When thieves argue and turn on each other, the truth becomes visible to everyone. And theirs was on full display for the world. They turned on each other like trapped animals, each trying desperately to save themselves by throwing the other under the bus. It was ugly, public, and deeply satisfying to witness. Mariel tried to make me her victim again, using the same tactics that once worked. She found my number somehow, probably from old records. She called crying, her voice desperate, begging, promising, blaming Damon for everything, pretending she loved me all along, that she was innocent. "Alice, please," she sobbed dramatically. "I was young and stupid. I made a terrible mistake. He manipulated me too. We can fix this together. We were best friends, remember? Sisters." Her voice cracked with practiced desperation. She tried every tactic she'd ever used successfully. Guilt about our shared past, nostalgia for good memories, pity for her situation. She reminded me of old memories, trips we took, secrets we shared, promises we made. "I still have that friendship bracelet you gave me," she said. "I never stopped caring about you." But I said nothing at all. Silence is my answer, my statement, my boundary. I let her talk until she ran out of words and scripts, then I hung up without speaking. Some doors stay closed for peace, not hatred or revenge, and that door was locked forever, welded shut. She called again and again over the next week, left voicemails, sent emails, but I never answered, never responded, never gave her the satisfaction of my voice or my pain. The courtroom was full of people, cameras, reporters, spectators. Irene testified first, sitting in the witness stand. He exposed every lie calmly, methodically. Lunessa dissected Damon with surgical precision during cross-examination. Every sentence she spoke cut deeper into his defenses. People whispered throughout the gallery. Some cried quietly. Some recorded on hidden phones. Irene sat in the witness stand, calm and steady, and told the truth without hesitation. He described the letters he found and read excerpts. The isolation he felt growing up. The manipulation, the control, the lies. The way they erased me from his life systematically. Damon's lawyer tried hard to discredit him, suggesting he was lying for money. But Irene didn't flinch, didn't waver. Lunessa presented the evidence piece by piece, building an unshakable case. The forged documents with expert analysis. The stolen money with transaction records. The fabricated psychological report with testimony from my actual therapist. She held up emails, bank statements, witness testimonies, creating a mountain of proof. She painted a picture so clear, so damning that even the judge looked disgusted. When the truth rises, even liars feel small and exposed. And Damon looked like a man shrinking under the weight of his own crimes. Mariel sat in the back, her face buried in her hands, mascara running, realizing too late that running wasn't an option anymore. A legal clerk discovered a critical document during a routine file review. The company ownership was never legally transferred properly. Mariel forged my signature on the transfer papers. My business was mine, all along, legally, officially. The judge froze everything immediately, halting all proceedings. The courtroom erupted in surprised whispers and gasps. Lunessa smiled for the first time in the trial, a small, victorious smile. The clerk presented the original documents, showed the detailed forgery analysis from handwriting experts, and proved conclusively that my signature was faked. The company, the profits, the contracts, the intellectual property, all of it was still legally mine. Damon and Mariel had been operating illegally for 19 years, committing ongoing fraud. Every transaction was void and reversible. Every decision was fraudulent and illegal. Every contract was invalid. The judge ordered an immediate freeze on all assets related to the business. Damon stood up abruptly, shouting objections, his composure finally breaking completely. But the gavel came down hard, echoing through the courtroom. "Order," the judge said coldly, glaring at him. "This court will not tolerate fraud." The truth has perfect timing, arriving exactly when needed. And ours had just arrived at the perfect moment when they thought they were safe, when they thought they'd won. The game had just changed completely in our favor. Their bank accounts collapsed overnight, reduced to nothing. Their assets froze immediately by court order. Their lawyers quit when payment failed, abandoning ship. Their social circle abandoned them instantly, deleting them from contact lists. Mariel collapsed in the hallway outside the courtroom, her legs giving out. Damon screamed at her, blaming her for everything publicly. Revenge began its sweet, slow work. Security escorted them out of the courthouse as reporters swarmed like sharks smelling blood. Cameras flashed continuously, blinding lights. Microphones shoved in their faces aggressively. "Is it true you stole her company? Did you forge documents? What do you have to say to your victims? How long were you planning this?" They said nothing coherent, just pushed through desperately. Damon pushed through the crowd roughly, his face red with rage and humiliation. Mariel stumbled behind him, mascara running down her cheeks, looking broken. Their lawyers released statements dropping them as clients immediately. Their accountant resigned publicly. Their business partners issued public apologies and statements of condemnation. A rising woman is the apocalypse for those who buried her, a force they never prepared for. And I was rising from the grave they dug for me, stronger than they ever imagined possible. They had buried me but forgotten something crucial. Some people don't stay buried. Some people dig themselves out stronger. Damon was escorted out of his own charity event by security guards. Security filmed the entire incident for evidence. Guests whispered and stared, filming on phones. Videos went viral within hours, spreading across platforms. Mariel received a restraining order for harassing Irene with calls and messages. Their downfall was public, humiliating, unforgettable, permanent. Social media exploded with the story, trending globally. People shared the courtroom videos, analyzed every detail obsessively, analyzed the evidence frame by frame, discussed every detail in comment sections. Hashtags trended worldwide. News outlets picked up the story enthusiastically. Woman reclaims business stolen by husband and best friend after 19 years. The comments were ruthless, brutal, unforgiving. People called them monsters, criminals, sociopaths, thieves, and evil. Old friends came forward with their own stories of betrayal they'd witnessed. Employees spoke about the toxic environment they created. Customers demanded refunds and apologies. The company's reputation tanked overnight, stock value plummeting. Humiliation blooms where arrogance once lived, growing like weeds. And theirs was blooming in front of the entire world, visible to everyone. They couldn't hide anywhere, couldn't escape to another city, couldn't deny what everyone could see. Everyone knows the truth now. Their names were ruined forever. Their faces are recognizable as villains. Their story is a cautionary tale. The judge ruled decisively in my favor after weeks of testimony. My business was restored to me completely. Damages must be paid in full. My name was cleared officially. Mariel faced criminal fraud charges with potential jail time. Damon faced financial penalties and charges. Irene was legally protected from them with restraining orders. When Irene hugged me tightly outside the courtroom and said, "We did it, Mom," I felt 19 years of darkness melt away. The judge's words still echoed in my mind, powerful and validating. Justice delayed is not justice denied. She ordered full restitution of all stolen funds, ordered public record correction across all documents, ordered my name restored to every business document, every contract, every patent. Damon and Mariel were ordered to pay nearly $2 million in damages, legal fees, and lost profits with interest. Criminal charges were filed officially by the prosecutor. Arrest warrants issued immediately. Their passports flagged to prevent flight. Some victories are felt in the soul deeply, not just the courtroom. And this one vibrated through every cell in my body, every breath. I had my son back. My name is back. My truth is back. My life back. And they had nothing left but consequences, debt, and shame. Everything they built on lies was gone. Everything they stole was returned. Justice was finally served. I stood outside the courthouse steps in the afternoon sun. The sky looked different, newer, brighter, cleaner somehow. I realized justice doesn't remove the pain magically. It simply returns your name to you and gives back your dignity. I whispered to myself quietly. I wasn't saved by anyone, I rebuilt myself. And for the first time in 2 decades, I felt genuinely alive. Irene stood beside me, his hand firmly in mine. Lunessa smiled from the courthouse steps, victorious. Reporters called my name repeatedly, wanting statements. But I didn't answer them, I just breathed. The air tasted sweeter than I remembered. The sun felt warmer on my skin. I thought about the woman I was 19 years ago, standing in that launch event, watching her world collapse around her. I wished I could tell her that she survives this, that she fights back eventually, that she wins in the end. My comeback is not revenge, it is rebirth, resurrection, renewal. I walked down those courthouse steps not as a victim anymore, but as a woman who refused to stay buried, who clawed her way back. And that made all the difference between giving up and fighting back. I was Alice Jordan again, and I had just reclaimed my life from the people who tried to steal it forever. To every person watching my story unfold, listen carefully. Not everyone you love is meant to protect you from harm. Some are meant to teach you how strong you really are. If a friend betrays you deeply, hear me well. You did not fail them. You were not foolish or stupid. You were loving and trusting. They were dangerous and calculating. A friend who becomes an enemy was never a real friend. You just didn't see the costume they wore. And if your heart is broken right now, listen closely. You are allowed to break into pieces, but you are not required to stay broken forever. Wherever you are watching this from, whatever situation you're facing, I hope my story reminds you of one truth. The people who bury you forget something important. Some of us are seeds, not corpses. I planted myself in the dirt they threw on me. I grew roots in the darkness they created. And I bloomed in the light they tried to steal from me. My name is Alice Jordan. And this is the truth about the day my life was stolen, and the day I took it back with everything I had. Remember this, you can lose everything and still rebuild. You can be buried and still grow. You can be broken and still become whole. Never let anyone convince you that their betrayal is your ending. If you learned something from my story, and if you have ever been betrayed by a friend, comment, like, share, and subscribe.